Welcome to AGORACOM, small cap best of the best. I'm George Tsiolis, founder of AGORACOM, and as always, with me, Allan Laboucan, chief marketator of AGORACOM. Allan, say hello.
Hello, everybody. We've had some big action in the markets today, and we'll have some good things to talk about.
All right. So the theme today is these massive turnarounds in gold, silver, and oil. We had absolute collapses take place on Friday, which is probably a slow day due to U.S. Thanksgiving. Nonetheless, collapse in oil, gold and silver got crushed. But look what happened today. So I'm going to go to a screen share here and bring up the first what we got. So let me bring this up.
Yeah, in the gold market, George, a lot of that was to do with the election or the vote that they had in Switzerland. It was, or which country?
Switzerland. Yeah.
Switzerland. And they were voting to buy back their gold so that their currency was backed more with gold. The Swiss are, definitely long-term believers in the price of gold and in having your currency backed up by it. But I guess the voters decided against it, and there really wasn't a lot of belief in the market that they were going to vote in favor of it. The polls were pretty much consistently against it, but that didn't stop it from getting beaten down last night in overnight trading pretty aggressively, but it turned on a dime.
Let's take a look at that. So you can see my gold chart, the hourly gold chart I've got up here, Al.
Yes.
All right, so here's what's happened in gold over the last couple of weeks. Here we are. Just got refreshed on me, but here we are, and here's the vote and everything taking place. Leading into the vote, the polls started saying the Swiss weren't going to support it, and absolute kablam. So you talk about from 1,200 right down to, you see a little tail here, 1140. Stabilized a bit, and that's probably because we had a bit of a break, and trading didn't really open up on Sunday night. I'm not sure if it opened up or if it was a week, because again, Thanksgiving. But
no, it was overnight trading last night. So I watched down $30-some last night.
All right, so look at that. All right, just a complete bloodbath here. Even these tails here, you can see. But then all of a sudden, it just caught. I'm not sure what happened. I wish I gave you some intelligence, so I think the most intelligent thing I can say is I don't know what happened. But look at this massive move from 1150 to 1220. Now, you don't need us to tell you that. Anybody can go read the headlines. So what I find is important now is that gold has to close above this level right here. See this level here?
Yep.
It's got to close above that level.
And it did.
And it did. And that tells me that, in fact, it may be in a breakout mode. And similarly, I'm going to flip over silver. Tell me if you can see this. Did that just flip over silver there, Al?
Yep. Same.
Fine. Look at silver. This is even worse. The bloodbath in silver was out of control. So you talk about 1650-ish, 1625 on the 27th, and look at this. I mean, that was just a rocket ride straight down, including this tail down into the low 14s.
Wow.
That could be a one-time fat finger, or people just.
Now that one. First, the best speculation that I got today on why it did such a turnaround was probably short covering. And I think that there's probably some validity in that. I noticed that in the silver chart is a little different than your gold chart because it actually closed below where you would draw that line.
Right, and I drew it earlier on Twitter, and I can't draw it here, but here's that point where I posted it, and it had just exceeded it. So you can see these two tails were just above, but it's given some of that back. So silver continues to. So silver hasn't really confirmed a breakout here, and you're gonna have to be careful to watch this. I mean, you gotta have to be very careful with both. Look at these jumps. I mean, anytime you get that kind of a parabolic move, you gotta expect something. But we want to see if it holds above these levels, and gold is holding. And look at oil, Al. So did it flip over to oil there for you?
Yep.
All right. Oil, 10 days ago, $78, $79. I remember, people wondering, can it hold 78? Can it hold 80? Didn't really hold it. Can it hold 75? right around here, it started to really weak at 74. A lot of traders think this is the bottom here. It's overshoot. It's an overshoot, and then just a rocket ride straight down into the 64 range, which was just this is the bloodbath of all bloodbaths on Friday, because a lot of people, gold and silver. Listen, a lot of people make arguments against it for one reason or another, but oil is oil. We need it every single day to power everything. So, when this happened, people were wondering what the hell's going on. Here we are, rocket ride right back up again to close the day. This took place today, and it hit as low as 64ish, and closed over 69. They actually closed green on the day. So, what do you make of that?
Well, I'm wondering. I didn't follow the currency markets much last night. What's your currency? What's the U.S. dollar looking like? I got a sneaky suspicion.
So I brought it up here. If you can see it, do you see my currency? Do you see the heat map that's come up?
Can you get a chart of that?
Yeah. So here's the U.S. dollar. We'll open that up right here. All right. U.S. dollar actually, and let me give you an hourly chart because it's a daily. All right. So you had the U.S. dollar at the same time take a bit of a tumble. Right?
No, well, yeah, you're right, actually.
Not a huge tumble, but I don't think that accounts for it, though. I don't think that accounts for it.
Well, then why would oil move the same as gold in the same trend as gold and silver? They're not really linked in any way.
Here's my call. Here's what I think may be happening. I just brought up the S&P here.
Yeah.
That's the daily chart over the last year, and bring up the hourly chart. I'm getting a sneaking suspicion here, let's go back to the...
Oh, look at there. It looks like they were getting out of stocks at the same time.
This is a historic look, okay? This is what's happened since 2009.
Yeah.
Just to give everyone some perspective that it's way out there, right? And here's the hourly that's taking place over the last couple of weeks. So I get a sneaking suspicion that too much money rushed out of gold, rushed out of silver, rushed out of oil, and rushed into equities. And I think we're looking at a short-term. I'm not going to call it the top, not yet, but I think we're looking at a short-term top here, where the equities are just getting too expensive and commodities just getting too cheap. I mean, come on, oil at 64 bucks.
Well,
gold at 11.50, silver at 14.50. Is it going to come from people say, how cheap do I want to buy these? How much do I want to buy the equity markets for?
Well, you got to look at the price. I mean, the price of oil is just too cheap right now. I mean, it's now down $10, $12 from the average cost of producing the stuff. Gold is at the cost of producing it. Silver's at the cost of producing it. I mean, these commodities have had the stuffing beaten out of them in every way, shape, or form. Yeah, I mean, I think that it would be a good time. And I noticed in the charts, too, that you could see signs that while they were jumping on gold, silver, oil, they were jumping out of U.S. dollars and the equities.
Yeah, so here's the U.S. dollar right here. No, that's the S&P. Here's the U.S. dollar. I wouldn't say jumping out of it. You're talking about 88.50 down to 87.60. So I wouldn't call it jumping out of it. A decent move.
Remember that's a basket. That's a U.S. dollar against a basket of currencies, right? That's a pretty substantial move in a short period of time. Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. That's an index in the basket.
In a few hours, there it moved down against the basket.
Yeah. So for everyone to see this against the basket, and it is a pretty good move against the basket of stocks. So we don't know what it's done against the euro and against the Canadian dollar and so on and so forth.
But in general, it went down against every current, or the basket, all the ones in the euro, the yen, or the euro, the pound, the Canadian dollar, the Aussie. They're probably all the New Zealand. They probably all. I definitely would say that Canada, Aussie, and New Zealand must have had a pop today. With the
I mean, I'm looking at the latest quotes here. They all look kind of neutral. Everyone's hugging neutral at the end of the day.
Yeah, but this
here's a bit of a tip, Al. Here's something we might want to look at. Sorry, let me go back here. Look at what I saw earlier today. which I think may lend further credence to what I'm talking about. This is the 10-year. This is the 10-year Treasury note in the U.S. This is the hourly here. Take a look at this. Right. It had made a massive move as well. People were really fearful, and we're just piling into the 10-year, and then it dropped right off today. So it's almost like people are moving out of these U.S. equities, U.S. bonds, and saying, hey, maybe bonds are short-term too expensive, gotten too far too fast, right?
You're always a guy looking for the catalyst, right? What was the catalyst?
Well, I think valuation. I think it's just a case of traders and investors looking at each other saying, how much gold cheaper do we want to take gold? I mean, silver at 1460 was crazy. Now, it may still continue back to those levels, but short-term, I believe commodities were way oversold, including oil, and equities were overbought. And you just had people correcting their positions at the end of the day. Now, what happens next few days, remains to be seen. I don't think this is the beginning of gold. I don't think this is the beginning of a bull run for gold and silver, and I don't think it's the beginning of a bear run for equities. But we had to find some balance, and I think gold is in that space here right now. It's at 1211. That's a pretty comfortable space for it to be at. It had something there at 1225. So I think we flatlined. I don't think this is the beginning of any crazy trend, but we do get a very strong signal, Al, that 1150 on gold doesn't seem like it's breakable.
Well, I'm really liking that even though it was getting pounded, it stayed above the last the bottom there. I think I can comfortably say that I'm looking at gold as having hit the bottom recently, and now I think the trend is more positive. Does that mean I think it's going to break out aggressively anytime soon? Probably not, but I do think it will trend upwards, and we'll have more good days than we have bad days, and the good days will be significantly better than the bad days.
And Al, this may be what you're referring to. Back in November, yes, we had gold fall off a cliff when you and I had another reckoning here and had a recovery, and then here we go again. But as you can see, clearly this dip here managed to stay above that last dip, and then come back with ferocity, because the last recovery was kind of choppy, but a decent trend upwards. This one was a massive spike right up. So
I like that.
Market's sending a signal that doesn't like 1150. It won't break it for now. So I'd be a buyer in that area.
What I like about that chart, George, it's a combination of one, that it didn't test that lower low. It didn't make a lower low. But then you look at that $1,200 number, right? And for the past week, 10 days, it's been kind of going sideways right at about that $1,200 number. And today it got above that. It stayed above that at the close. So, it's like it created another higher high. And so a higher low and a higher high on the same day, I'm kind of liking that.
Yeah, that is pretty good. Here's what Al's talking about. Look at this sideways action right here, all through this period right here, all sitting around 1200, a little below, but then this ferocious, filled this gap, and then that ferocious, recovery. So I think the market sends us a clear signal that you can be a comfortable buyer of gold stocks and gold itself when you get if you ever get back into this range, you can probably buy comfortably. And I think that, so let's talk about some picks. So let's talk about some things. So let me do a screen here and go to what you like as a result.
You want to start first, George? I've got a couple of silver I can give you. I got a gold. I got an oil.
Well, I'll tell you right now. I'm gonna bring up your list here. So bear with me for 1 second. Here's a list if you can see it. Did it come up?
Yep.
Did it come up for you?
Yep. Okay. I see what you're starting with.
All right. So this is so there. By the way, let's take a look at let's look at the TSX Venture first to see what that's up to. And you can see that the bloodbath there continues. So we're going into Labor Day. We're at over 1,000, and now we're heading to the low sevens. We're at 725 right here. So Tax law selling is going to be is on its way and happening right now.
But I think we
So
can also see that, George, that taking advantage of this tax law selling, with a better market for gold, I think will pay off dividends this year again, like it did last year. Because to me, a lot of great, really good companies are dramatically oversold right now.
all right, so the first one that you've got, and it had big news today. Sorry, as I upgrade the first one that you've got is PZG, Paramount Gold, huge
Yep.
move. And let's bring up the U.S. symbol actually, because I always bring up the.
PZG was the biggest mover on my screen of stocks that I follow in the gold space. And the reason for that move is there's a rumor
Up
going.
22, by the way, just for everyone at home, up 22.7% on 1.8 million shares. It normally does 500,000 a day. So 3.5 times, almost 4 times its normal trading volume on 22.5%. So what are you hearing?
Yeah, there's a rumor going around that they're a takeover target by Coeur d'Alene, I believe it is, one of the major silver producers. The rumor is that they're after them for one of their San Miguel, I believe it is, mine down there in Mexico, because the major is right beside them. Now, George, this is always a difficult situation to speculate on takeover rumors and stuff like that, but it sure ignited the stock today, and they couldn't have picked a better day to drop that rumor out there, because they also got a very good move in gold to go along with it. So, a couple things transpired there to push the price of PZG up. I've liked this company for a long time. I like their projects in silver and gold. They've got a couple mines, and they've got a good pipeline of projects as well. But didn't see this coming. I mean, yeah, it makes sense because there is a major right beside them that's producing, and this would help the economics of scale quite significantly. So I can see it happening, but rumors are rumors, and you got to take those with a grain of salt.
Yeah, but you know what is New York NYSE? That's a lot of volume there. 1.8 million shares on 80 cents is, call it, let's ballpark of $1.5 million. It's one thing to have rumors on 100,000 shares of a 20-cent stock. It's nothing to rumors of 1.8 million shares on the 80-cent stock. And just for technical purposes, take a look at how it just hasn't been able. The red line represents the 50-day moving average, and over the last year, it's had a very difficult time, especially since April, trying to stay above that. And we have a breakout here. If you can see that right here, Al.
Oh yeah, look at that! It got above the 50 in the 9-day.
Yeah, so it broke through 2 moving averages in one day, pretty significantly.
That's a Georgie indicator there. You like those, don't you, George?
Yeah, I do like those actually. So I'm going to be taking a really close look at this tomorrow, because if I see continued bids up there, look, the 50-day moving average 75 cents. So if I see continued strength, then I may become a buyer if it stays over this. But
Okay, now George, let me ask you a question about that. Okay, so it broke above the 50-day quite significantly. It's like 20 some cents. What did it close? How much above? Oh, we're talking in American dollars there. Okay.
Yeah, 75 cents is the 50-day moving average U.S., and it's
Okay.
6 cents above that. Normally, I'd be a buyer at 76 and 77 and 78, but this was a very abrupt move, right? So you have to be careful of the 22% spike in one day that it doesn't turn out to be. So you have to watch to see continuation of the rumor and the volume behind it. And if I continue to see a lot of bids stacked up at 77, 78, 79, 80 cents, then I'm going to jump in.
So you're not necessarily saying that tomorrow morning you want it to trade above 81. You're saying as long as it trades above 75,
right.
you're comfortable there. Is that what you're saying, George?
Very comfortable, yeah. As long as and it's trading above 75 on good. I want to see the bid stacking, because that'll tell me that in fact the market is believing these rumors. So you got to go with it at the end of the day.
Take it for a little ride.
Rubicon Minerals, RMX. We've talked about this before. It's your. By the way, Garibaldi, its working capital, the shares, is it in Paramount Gold?
Yes, it
All
is.
right, so why don't we talk about Garibaldi, which is a client of both of ours. For
Okay.
those of you who don't know, Garibaldi hasn't had to do any financing in years. It hasn't been forced to anyways. If it did any strategic, if it does so, it'd be for strategic purposes. But why? Because they sold a key project to Paramount Gold for millions of shares. And as a result, the company has, I don't know, somewhere between $2 and $3 million of working capital representing shares they own at Paramount. So whenever they need money, they slowly sell those off. So the Paramount news is fantastic for Garibaldi, obviously,
Yes.
especially
But
if it does
that
get,
actually,
especially if it does get bought out, because they'll, depending on the premium, that'll turn into a lot of cash for Garibaldi.
yeah, that's actually not the reason I wanted to talk about Garibaldi today, but it's a contributing factor. Garibaldi is, as George said, it's a client of both of ours. Garibaldi has a banner on my website, and it's a deal with George.
Or sponsorship, not IR, but sponsorship
Sponsorship,
deal with the
sorry.
broker. So we're not going to give you buy or sell targets or anything like that on
Right,
Garibaldi.
but
But
what I did want to say is, I'm always out there looking for good silver stories, and they're not that easy to find, George. And just in the last little while, Garibaldi is they had two main groups of projects. They had a group of projects down in Mexico, and then they had these projects up in British Columbia. And the area that they're in British Columbia is very interesting. There's lots of activity up there, but I always liked their Mexico projects better because they were more advanced. And so they drilled those Mexican projects recently, and they've been getting some really good results in the drilling. Super high grade silver. They're also getting some indications that in another area they've got gold there. And I'm hoping that I get the sense from management that they're really starting to focus on the silver stuff, and I'm really excited about that because I'm always looking for good silver stories, and it just so happens that one of the companies that has a banner on my website is emerging as a very good silver story. And so that's why on a day when silver's moving and we're trying to come up with some silver companies, most of the silver companies I follow are much bigger, George. But here's one that's, on the early days of the discoveries.
all right, and I encourage everyone to go take a look at some of the interviews that Al and I have done with Steve Rigosi over at Garibaldi. Fantastic webcast, videos just like this. Go to AGORACOM and look them up, and you'll get some great information on why Garibaldi is actually a leader, and they constantly are moving projects forward. They're not sitting dormant and doing great stuff, and we'll leave it at that. So let's stick with the silver theme then.
Sure.
On the silver theme, since we're there, I'm going to let you talk about yours, and I'll talk about mine. So yours is Fortuna Silver Mines, FBR and the TSX. Gotta love this. It's basically a $5 stock doing 600,000 shares a day in volume, so $3 million a day. Gotta love that. Here's the one-year chart that to take a look at what's happened to the company. Pretty stable given what's been going on. Gotta love that. Gotta love that.
Exactly.
And here's the last 3 months. So let's talk about what you like about Fortuna on the TSX.
Well, George, it always starts with fundamentals for me, and the fundamentals of this company is they've got a lot of good projects down in Mexico. They've got a family that's been that runs the company that's been active in mining in South America for a long, long time. They're a strong family in mining down there, and they've taken over Fortuna Silver. Fortuna Silver has been a long-term call of mine. I think I originally started picking it at about $1 many years ago. This was even before we started doing our show, George. And it just came down to the quality of management and the quality of projects that they had in production and the pipeline of projects that they had to be future producers. And now we're seeing that, as difficult and challenging as it's been for the silver and gold companies over the last year, this one has been relatively stable, if not, you could say, performing pretty well. And so if you think that silver is going to get stronger like I do, and that the bottom's probably in, this is definitely one you got to take a look at. And here's just the perfect example, George. here's how difficult it is. I mean, I got one pick at 20 cents. The next one's at 4.78. I don't have a lot of good silver companies, and I've been, rolling up my sleeve looking for good silver companies for a long time. There just isn't enough of them, and I think that also plays a role in why they're less volatile than gold stocks a lot of times.
Yeah, I got to admit, because one criticism we have of the junior markets and the TSX Venture Exchange specifically is they allowed a bunch of nobodies to get into the business, and I guess those nobodies were primarily gold hunters, and that's why you have so much volatility. You have not too many of the pretenders are going to go after gold. Are going to go after silver. They're more likely to go after gold because that's just gold is gold at the end of the day. Where silver you tend to have more. Would it be accurate to say, Al, you got more serious players who are going after silver?
That's a great point, George, and I actually think that plays a role in the price of diamond stocks as well. It's a small group of companies that are focused on those two commodities, and it's sort of, let's say, well-informed group of investors that invest in those two kinds of commodities. And so that I've always been of the mind, George, that I don't chase hot money. You've heard me say before, I like to look for cold money. There's just more of that stable money in those kind of commodities, and especially if you get a great company like Fortuna Silver.
All right, so let's look over at Santa Cruz Silver Mine. SCZ, this is one that I've been following for a while. People on Twitter know that I've traded in and out of this a couple of times. Again, fantastic stability for the entire year until it just fell off a cliff with the rest of the TSX Venture Exchange. So whereas holding this, had a great trading range here, good trading range, good trade, and then just fell off the face of the earth here. Just on that basis alone, when the company is at $1.20 early in the year, and it's at 40 cents now, you're talking about 2/3. That's you're talking about 67% lower. And these guys are a producer at the end of the day. I can't tell you the exact numbers, Al. Do you know? I'm not sure if you know their specific numbers or not.
I just had it up there. I'll pull it up, George.
Yeah, right. I got their production results right here. So if you don't mind, I'll do that. So it looks like that in the third quarter, they processed 23,677 tons of ore. That was up 4.7%. Metal production increased essentially 10% to 185,000 silver equivalent ounces. And that was for third quarter. So if you extrapolate that out, ballpark, you're looking at a company doing about 800,000 silver equivalent ounces at the end of the day.
And they've got a project that they've just done a preliminary economic assessment on. They did a $28 million financing. This company has a good pipeline as well of projects.
Yeah, the $28 million funding was unbelievable.
Yeah.
They closed that in October. Probably a great time. What price did they do that? Let's see if we can actually see.
Probably double today's price.
Terms here. Oddly enough, it's not in the press release. At least I'm not seeing it.
Here, I'll find it for you, George. They usually always put
it. Actually, hold on. I don't think they did it. It looks like it's a prepaid silver purchase agreement. So the company had agreed to sell 4.6 million ounces of silver through August 2019.
Oh, it was an offtake deal. Okay.
Yeah, but even that it can't be. I mean, that adds to $7 now. So we know they're not giving away their gold at $7 an ounce. So there's something to. But bottom line is they're active, and I have to do a little more due diligence. But I really like Santa Cruz. I liked it back then. And I got to take a look at it to make sure the economics haven't changed at these prices. But all the things being equal, I'm liking it here. Here's a 2-year chart. So 2 years ago at this time, in December 2012, it was trading in the $2.30 range, and now it's trading at 40 cents. So sooner or later, this is going to get too cheap. But I like this as something you got to look at. Rubicon RMX on the TSX. You've talked about this before, 628,000 shares, so tremendous liquidity. You're saying this is your top gold pick right now?
Yeah, George, if you pinned me down and told me I could only buy one gold stock for the next 2-3 years, Rubicon would be the one I'd buy today and hold on to it. The reason is that they will be By this time next year, they'll be producing gold in Red Lake, Ontario. They'll be the first company other than since Goldcorp started producing there to bring a new mine into production. It's fabulously high grade. It will be very profitable even at today's numbers. And it's just at these prices, to me, it's a slam dunk. You know, it's my number one pick as far as gold goes, and those are the reasons. It's just it's got a great asset. It's going to be producing gold, making a lot of money. We get any kind of positive move in the price of gold, and it's just going to amplify the performance of this stock. So that's the main reasons why I like Rubicon.
All right, here's a little perspective over the last 2 years. You know, we know that 2014 has been a rough ride for gold, and yet it's been able to maintain this very tight range, almost this dollar, $1.05 to $1.75, $1.80. Well, that's not a super tight range, so pardon me. That's actually not that super tight, but it's been able to provide some consistency given what's happened on most other gold companies.
Yeah, it's sort of bounced between $1 and $1.50 for what, almost a year and a half now.
Yeah, I guess the $1.80 peaks and all that were just temporary peaks. For the most part, you can see it sitting right here in the $1.50 range, and on the lower side, sitting here in the $1.20. Yeah, so you know what? For the most part, I take that back. It has been a pretty tight range in the $1.20 and $1.50, with the occasional break up and the occasional break down. Yeah. But it's back in that sweet spot again at $1.22. So and up today, I mean, could have got $1.12 on Friday, but I don't think anyone wants to be a hero on Friday given what happened to gold. I'm going to talk quickly about Timmins Gold. We don't have to, we've talked about this company before. I'm liking Timmins. I'm just curious as to whether if gold gets too low, they can continue to produce at the end of the day, or if they got to shut down that mine. So you've got to be careful.
Good question, George. I'll have to do some homework on that and see what their average cost of production is.
Do some homework on that if you don't mind, because before you make these, and that's why I'm not calling it a buy, I'm calling it a due diligence. But if it can maintain its viability, then anything at $1, I usually follow the U.S. I usually follow the Canadian, because the volume is much stronger, so 450,000 shares versus 180 in the U.S.
That serves me correct. This is fairly high grade, so I would imagine that they've got some healthy margins in there still, George. But again, I've got to do some homework on that average cost of production with Timmins to figure out whether I think that this is a bottom or not.
And finally, Tamarack Valley, TVE. Everyone has said, this is the one that I've given away where I've said it's on my tax loss selling list. This is one of them. I mean, take a look at this. Forget about the 2 year. Take a look at this 1 year. I traded this a couple of times. I beat myself up over it when I missed it at the technical buy breach right here. I mean, somewhere in here I missed it, and it went on a run. But it got to 750, and it's now down to the low threes, 306. Now, Tamarack Valley is an oil and gas company, produces oil, so naturally this has beat the company up big time. I'm putting it on the due diligence list. The reason for that is you've got to take a look and see what their average cost of their oil production is, and how much of a beating this is going to give them on the bottom end top line. But
you can pretty much say that they're underwater here, the production, and they're not the only one.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I want to look that up, because it may be also just people tax loss selling and running out of here, right?
Yeah.
If it was any other time of the year, if this is June, July, March, April, September, I'd say, without having to look at the news, that they're 100% underwater. But this may be a case of just people constantly trying to catch a knife, and panicking and selling, and then you have this capitulation move on crude.
You're seeing that in a lot of them, George. If you got an oil one there, if you want one from me that just made some news, it's PWT. You'll see a similar type chart if you put PWT up there. And this company just sold some assets, but they negotiated those asset sales at higher prices. So they've been able to sell $1 billion worth of assets recently. They're restructuring their debt and everything like that. This is a turnaround play that I'm starting to do some homework on.
All right, so quickly, TVE in the last 10 days, look at that, $4.50, now down to $3. That's unbelievable. So it's lost 30% of its value in 10 days.
Wow.
You got to think that's some kind of capitulation there, but that's not. And now let's take a look at Penn West PWT. The same, same kind of deal. TSX 380, 2 million shares a day. So let me pop this open here. First, let's do the 1 year to get some perspective. So look at that, pretty stable throughout the year. All for all intents and purposes, a $9, between $9 and $10. The first leg down, and then this second leg, and the third leg here has been brutal. So anytime a stock goes from $11, I mean that's a really big move out, right? From $11 to $380, again, you're talking about close to, it's going to get close to that 2/3 pretty soon, if not already, right? It's pretty much right around there. You've got to start taking it seriously. Look at something now that's kind of a theme. Tamarack does 650,000 shares a day on average over the last 50 days. It doubled it to 1.16, so it's pretty much a double for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
And look at Penn West does 2 million shares a day, and today did 4.9.
Yeah, there's your capitulation.
Yeah, we may be seeing it right here in front of us. You got to do your own due diligence for everyone at home just to make sure that they're both viable at these prices and not going to be, so that they're not. So not announcing any kind of shutdowns of production in the next couple of weeks, but 4.5% down for Tamarack, 6.6% down for PWT. Already brutal stock action. So we may be looking at
but like you said, in the case of Penn West, that's 250% difference in volume, and it's on the down. That's looking like could be capitulation there.
Yeah, you're talking about 2.5 times, right? That's exactly it. 2.5 times its normal volume. So for everyone at home, here's the great news. This is the process that Al and I go through when we make our own investing decisions. Which again, good time to bring up the disclaimer. You've got to make your own investment decisions based on your own circumstance. Don't listen to Al and I. We talk about our own circumstance. Talk to your financial advisor. Talk to your partners.
And ideas. We're coming up with ideas for.
Yeah, and we're coming with ideas. So these are ideas that we're going to be looking at to figure out if, in fact, if this is capitulation selling, this is exactly the kind of stuff that we're looking for at the end of the day. So, Al, great show. I mean, I think can we summarize with this? The conclusion. I'm going to take the screenshot off here because I do want the benefit of everyone to see my pretty face. I don't want to disappoint the fans.
All the ladies in the church are clapping right now, Georgie.
I think the theme is that we've seen commodities, anytime you see a massive move down and then a massive move up on gold, silver, and oil, I think the market's sending us a very clear signal that $65 oil is too cheap for oil. $65 oil is too cheap. $11.50 gold is too cheap. And silver just got silly at $14.50, $14.60. Got really silly. So we're sitting now. This is one of those first times I'm going to agree with Al, even though I have a little bit lately. We're definitely sitting at the 5-10 percentile bottom for gold. I can say that for silver for sure.
You almost got bullish there for a second.
Almost. Don't listen. It's got to get close. It's safe. You can start making some safe investments and look around for great value. I wouldn't speculate on some junior that's still in the exploration phase. But if you're talking advanced project like Timmins Gold, if you're talking advanced project like what's your pick, Al? Sorry, Rubicon. Then this is the time to make them. Market send you a clear signal that you've got a floor put into your price, short of something spectacular happening in the market. So that's the investing thesis going forward. So your job at home is to find out, all right, who are the top quality names at these cheap prices.
Yep, exactly. And I agree with you, George. I think that between here and the end of the year is a time to be, have your shopping list full up, be doing your homework on all those deals, because you're going to be able to get deals now that are going to be rewarded in the first quarter quite significantly.
When do you suggest, today's December 1st, it's our Monday show, December 8th will be our next Monday show. December 8th too early, or do we wait till December 15th? Last year we did December 19th, and it was juicy. We picked off some killers. Do we do December 8th or December 15th as our show?
No, let's do it like we did last year. I think actually last year, I think we did it in between Chris. Or no, yeah, it was right
No,
around
it
the.
was December 19th. It was exactly
There
December
you
the
go. Let's
19th.
do it on the 15th then. We'll do our contest on the 15th.
All right, so everyone at home should know December 15th we're going to be making our picks publicly, so make sure to stay tuned for that.
Sounds good, George.
All right, everyone, thanks for joining us. Hope you, we didn't make as many picks, but I think we derived a lot better information based on some bottoms in the major underlying commodities, and hopefully that'll help all of you at home. So have a fantastic night. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to get the word out by spreading this, spread this to your networks by email, Twitter, Facebook, AGORACOM, and whatever other mode of social media you choose. Until then, have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you next week.